Hey VC, how's it going? Right, this is my response to the 2025 Whack-A-Mole vinyl tag. Now, I saw that earlier today, Mazzy uploaded a video where he was doing his usual whack-a-mole, where he's just pulling out random records from the shelf behind him and talking about them, which is a lot of fun. And on the back of that, he was just coming up with some off-the-cuff questions. Now, that was just done for the purpose of entertainment, just a bit of a laugh. I'm not going to answer the questions, but I am going to do a whack-a-mole. I've never done one before, so I'm going to use this rack of records here, which is largely just rock and pop, a little bit of soul in there. There's no jazz, there's no reggae, there's no world music, nothing like that. It's all elsewhere. So I'm just going to try this rack of records here. I'm only going to pull out 5 to begin with, see how I get on with that. So for those of you that don't realise I do these videos kneeling down, yeah, you're going to realise now. So, right, so record number 1, right? So I'm not going to look, I'm just going to see what I pull out. Record number 2. Record number 3 from over there. So tightly packed, I know it's bad for the records, but it is what it is. 3, 4, one up here. And record number 5. Right, okay, so 5 random records. They're all here. I'm just going to pop them on the floor, so I'm not cheating. Right, so David McCallum, first of all. As you can see, I paid £17.50 for this from the Diskery, which is a great record shop in the centre of Birmingham, right? So David McCallum, was he in Man from U.N.C.L.E. or something like that? It's one of those sort of spy shows from the 60s. But the reason why I bought this record is because it's produced by David Axelrod. Now, David Axelrod, as time has gone on, people have realised what a wonderful producer he was. So he's responsible for, obviously he's made his own solo records, but also producing the likes of Cannonball Adderley. Those late 60s, early 70s Cannonball Adderley records are just full of drum breaks. It's, yeah, great stuff, been sampled to death. And on the back of that, I spent a little while, probably about 20 years ago, trying to pick up as many Axelrod productions as I could. And that's one of them. So that's number 1. Right. Number 2. Right. Okay. So this is a funk record. So this is the Jimmy Castor bunch. And the album's called But Of Course. Now, a shocking sleeve there. It's got like a cartoon thing on the back as well. This is mid-70s, I think, 75, something like that. 1974 on Atlantic. Now, Jimmy Castor bunch are responsible for one of the big funk tunes, It's Just Begun, which is an absolute classic. This is a little bit later. The album's okay. I probably only played it a couple of times, but it's just good fun funk music, as you'd probably guess from the cover there. So there you go. It's number 2. Right, number 3. All right, okay, here we go. So this is Loleatta Holloway with her album Loleatta. This came out in the late 70s, 78. So this is a disco record. So she made some great gospel records in the early 70s on the Aware label. A couple of cracking solo records, so very gospel influenced. You get to the mid 70s and she put out a couple of disco albums. This is on South Soul, is it? Yeah, this is on the South Soul label. Yeah, so you can see there. So the big tune that she's known for is Love Sensation, which was sampled by Black Box and used on Ride on Time. Now, there's obviously a big court case on the back of that, and she finally got paid out. I believe that she's the most sampled female singer in history. So whether that's the case or not, I'm not sure, but that's what I've heard. So that's what I'm going with. So that's the 3rd record. Right, number 4. Bob Dylan, Nashville Skyline, 1968, is it? Something like that. I think it's about 68. This is where he went country. So is this the record after Nashville, after John Wesley Harding, which is probably my favourite Dylan album. Really like this record. Starts off with Girl from the North Country, which is the duet with Johnny Cash. And his voice is noticeably different on this record to anything else in his career. So I believe for a period before recording this record, he stopped smoking. So his voice is a lot more clean. It's a lot more pure than it is than that gravelly voice that we used to with regards to Dylan. But the problem with this record, it's not long enough. It's only about half an hour long. It needs to be longer. It really is a good album. One of my favourites. And yeah, Nashville Skyline, Bob Dylan. Right. And finally, I like this one as well. Produced by Trevor Horn on Island Records. Grace Jones, Slave to the Rhythm. So Grace Jones, if you don't own any of her records, I've said before, the records that she put out on Ireland in the early part of the 80s, stuff like Warm Leatherette, Nightclub, in those records sound about as good as any other record that came out in the 1980s. The production is pretty much perfect. I say this is a Trevor Horn production. She always worked with the best musicians, you know, regularly worked with Sly and Robbie as a rhythm section. And she always had a mixture of original tunes and cover versions as well. So I say the big tune on here is Slave to the Rhythm. And that song keeps coming back in throughout the album. So yeah, big fan of Grace Jones, particularly the stuff that she put out in the 1980s. So there you go. That's 5 records. I've sort of fudged my way through those just off the cuff. It's harder than it looks, these whack-a-mole things. So fair play to Mazzy. I never thought I'd say that, but fair play to Mazzy. So there you go. Cheers.